Good morning. Welcome to Lovebabz, Lovetalk. I'm Babz Rawls Ivy. And this morning I have in studio with me Bill Villano from Workforce Alliance. And y'all know what Workforce Alliance is. It is the policy and oversight organization responsible for creating a comprehensive community-wide response to the challenges of building a highly skilled workforce in Southern Connecticut, which comprises 30 towns. And so there's a couple of things that I wanted to talk to Bill about. They have a new Skill Up for Manufacturing initiative going on, and this program will expedite training and job placement. And the whole thing is in the Inner City News on page 12. But he's here to talk about that because this is exciting stuff, and people ought to know about it so that they can go and apply and do all these kinds of things to get into into this program. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time, so it's nice to see you. So tell me, what's going on over at Workforce Alliance these days?
Well, we're doing a lot, but this new manufacturing initiative is actually quite exciting. There is a tremendous need in the state for manufacturing workers. There's 4,500 manufacturing companies in the state. The Connecticut Business and Industry Association estimated that Connecticut would need 13,000 plus manufacturing jobs in just this calendar year, and the Connecticut Department of Labor has indicated that the state will need 25,000 manufacturing jobs over the next 5 years. So there's a significant need. These jobs are good jobs, well-paying jobs, and really career jobs.
And they're not the manufacturing jobs like Olin and Winchester repeating arms. It's not those kinds of jobs anymore.
No, the manufacturing associations around the state 25,000 are working hard to try to dispel jobs over the next 5 years. So what they call the 3Ds, there's a significant need, dirty, dark, and dangerous. These jobs are good jobs. Manufacturing has become much more high career jobs.
And they're not the manufacturing jobs like Olin and Winchester repeating arms. It's not those kinds of jobs anymore.
No, manufacturing associations around the state 25,000 are working hard to try to dispel jobs over the next 5 years. So what they call the 3Ds. So we have dirty, dark, and dangerous jobs. So manufacturing has become a mix of submarines, Pratt and Whitney, Sikorsky. Electric Boat has work. If they never got another defense contract, Electric Boat has work through 2037, Pratt and Whitney through 2034. There's not a lot of places you can go today and people can say, look, we have work, for the next 20 years.
So we shouldn't be freaked out every time we hear them, because it seems sometimes we hear them saying, they have to lay off people, have to do this kind of stuff, or they're in danger, and then we have to rally around our elected officials and, make sure that these contracts stay in Connecticut. And
No, you're absolutely right. The defense industry, especially Electric Boat, in the past had a lot of ups and downs. They're somewhere around, 16,000 employees. They're going to 20,000 employees. They have a contract to build these new Columbia class submarines, which are these huge things. They're almost 2 football fields long, and that work it will take them for years. Plus, the submarines that they're making now, they also have contracts to maintain them over the years. So there's a lot of work. And Electric Boat, for example, has 500 subcontractors, mostly in Connecticut and Rhode Island, mostly in Connecticut, and those subcontractors do work also for Pratt and Sikorsky enough. So there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work, and the companies, the manufacturers that have managed to survive in Connecticut, have found their niche. They're making products, they're selling internationally, and one thing I would say, when you look at employment and employment growth in the state, manufacturing for a lot of years was always on the bottom, and they were shedding jobs and things like that. They're now at the top. They're leading growth in the state, which hasn't been the case in 15 years, 20 years. So it's pretty significant. And so there's a lot of jobs. There's a lot of good jobs, and I think there's a lot of jobs for years to come.
So why are we not hearing this? Like, why are we? Because the narrative that I hear, Bill, is that Connecticut is losing its intellectual brain, its intellectual workers. There's not enough jobs. We're not growing. We're the least growing state in the country. I'm hearing all these kinds of things. And but jobs is the thing that we measure growth, right? We use that to, if people are here working and everybody's working.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that you're talking about. One is we still have not recovered the jobs that we lost in the recession.
Okay.
And so we're 9 years out almost, to when the recovery, and we're about at 90% recovery of the jobs. So I think one of only 2 states in the country that have not yet recovered 100% of the jobs that we lost.
Okay.
We are an old state. I think we're the 7th oldest state in the country. We have anemic, sometimes negative population growth. And we do have a fairly significant out-migration of young people, young and educated people, going south and west.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's incumbent upon us to train, who we have here. And this program that we're initiating is a program that was started by the Eastern Workforce Board, my counterpart in the East, and it has had a tremendous amount of success. In about 2.5 years, they've placed over 1,000 people in jobs with more than 140 companies in good-paying jobs. And the most, I think, telling statistic of all in this program is that 78% of the people who went through it had no manufacturing experience before. So, people that are working retail or part-time jobs or things like that, have a real opportunity to get into a career that is lasting. And you're correct. And these are the kinds of things that will help stimulate Connecticut's economy and I think help with our competitive future.
So how do we define a good paying job in Connecticut? I know what a good paying job would be like in Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, but Connecticut, because we have such a disparity in ultra rich and poverty.
Well, the cost of living in the state is clearly high, right? So, I'll give you an example. The HR woman from Electric Boat said to me, where can somebody go with a high school education and a little bit of training and earn $60,000 a year?
Ooh.
As a welder at Electric Boat, you can do that. So this program puts people on a path. They'll probably start somewhere. We've been starting people somewhere in the $16 to $18 an hour range. But with additional training, on the job, and people maybe taking additional courses at the community colleges, or other schools, can really end up, because the average wage for a manufacturer in Connecticut is somewhere around $80,000.
I'm changing careers. I'm getting in this program.
Okay, well, come on down. We'll enroll you.
I'm coming down. I'm like, what? So, all right. So those are good paying jobs. Those kinds of jobs allow people to buy a house, put kids through college,
right,
save for some retirement.
Yeah. I mean, they're the problem with the recovery in general and the problem in Connecticut is we lost a lot of those jobs in the recession, and what we were gaining back were lower paying service jobs or retail jobs or things like that. We have a real opportunity now to begin to put people to work in really, as I said, good paying jobs, good jobs, and jobs that will be a career for them.
Do we have do we have enough of a work pool to draw from? Do we have enough people, Bill, to support these? I mean, I know you said it was successful in the eastern part of the state. Do we have enough people?
Yes. I mean, I think we have enough people. One of the things that my counterpart in the East said is a lot of people they found were, he said, hiding in plain sight. So there were people that were out there that were working, and I say working jobs that were maybe below their potential, unemployed, and that's the target that we're looking for, to try to get that person to ramp up from an existing job, into one of these manufacturing operations. And there are many paths you can take within the manufacturing field.
Because there's a lot of people that work in the service industry, and the service industry historically doesn't pay a lot of money. You have to work a lot of hours to make a lot of money.
Yeah, you have to work a lot of hours. A lot of times you got to work a couple of jobs. And it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, this is a real opportunity, as I said, for people to ramp up and be able to get themselves to the kind of next level in their career.
And so you're coming up on the deadline, right? People have to get over there by December 7th.
Right. So this program is basically, what it does is it takes manufacturing training and compresses it into a very tight and comprehensive in a comprehensive manner. So so the people need to have some good math ability. I mean, that's one of the things that sometimes people struggle with. So if people come in and don't quite test out where they need to, we also have a remedial program, Adult Ed, which you're very familiar with.
Yes,
and
I used to work over there. Yep.
Can help people elevate that.
Mm-hmm.
And in the worst case scenario, if somebody doesn't really have the skills at this point to get into the program, at Workforce Alliance and our American Job Centers, the 4 American Job Centers in the region, we have other options for people. We can put people in other training programs. We can work with them to get a different job. So, the manufacturing is a good opportunity, but for those people who may not be able to do that, we still have a number of other options for them.
So is this something that do you recruit in places that are unconventional, like the tech schools and the?
Well, we recruit broadly. We work with a number of nonprofit organizations. We go to churches. We have a number of hiring events. We do a lot of social media. We have Facebook and Twitter and stuff. Actually, it's amazing how many responses we get from our Facebook page in terms of these initiatives. So when we have hiring events, as I said, we've been working with Amazon and FedEx and a lot of companies doing hiring events for them, and we've got some pretty good response. So this is kind of on a very fast track. So we're hoping to be able to get a number of individuals in, and this class is going to start the first couple of days of February and is going to be run out of Gateway Community College in New
that's
Haven.
an interesting pair up, right?
Yeah, it's a collaboration between Gateway and Housatonic Community College out of Bridgeport. In terms of their teaching and curriculum. We're also going to be working with Middlesex Community College and Vinyl Technical School. We're trying to get as many of these providers as we can in this process to really begin to increase the numbers of graduates dramatically.
Is there a magic number you're hoping for?
Well, what I would really like to do is between those 2 institutions and anybody else we can is to graduate a group of 20 to 25 every 5 weeks. Out of this,
that's a good turnaround.
Right. Now, one thing I should mention, because I'm sure the governor listens to your program, right? Is that
he does?
Okay. The legislature passed a bonding bill that provides up to $50 million over 4 years to replicate this program throughout the state. So, there are 5 workforce boards in the region. We will all be doing it. We will all be trying to have this really accelerated program and dramatically increase the number of manufacturing workers in the state. So we are hoping that the bond commission, passes, allowing some funds initially this year so that we can really put, hundreds, and statewide thousands of people to work.
Now, does a program like this make Connecticut attractive to folks coming in and setting up shop? Because Amazon is coming, FedEx is already here.
Right.
I mean, does it make it attractive for them to know that they have a workforce that they could draw from?
We work very closely with Mike Frieda, the first selectman in North Haven, when he was kind of doing the deal with Amazon. And that's one of the things that he put on the table is that we have a workforce program that can help you fill this, because 2,000 workers is a lot, and they're planning to, I think, open mid-spring or maybe summer of next year. So we're fast approaching their opening,
and they're going to be a distribution hub, right?
Right. Okay. Right. So there is a.
So I can get my packages faster.
You get them quicker. There's a fulfillment center, right, in Wallingford. So when you order it, the fulfillment center, puts it in a box and ships it, and then it goes to North Haven and distributed. I mean, Amazon is fantastic in terms of what you can buy and how quickly you can get it.
What did you think of their whole hoopla around where they were going to move to and getting there? It's sort of very American Idol-ish, right?
Yeah,
making everybody vie for the opportunity.
Dramatic, right? Yeah.
And then they go someplace that's just okay. What?
Well, they were going to pick one city and then they picked two, right?
In
Virginia
picked,
and New York.
Yeah. Well, I was just imagining they could have made a bigger difference in some other places.
Yeah, I mean, I think New Haven and Bridgeport put in a proposal. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, no, I did. We talked about it here.
Yeah, and I think that where we probably couldn't be competitive is we don't have the transportation hub that they needed.
Yes.
That was kind of, I'm sure, one of the deal killers.
Now, do you have those conversations about transportation as part of job readiness and job development and workforce development?
Yeah, the biggest issue facing most people that come into the American Job Centers is transportation. Mm-hmm. If you look at where we place individuals, and if you look back 6, 7, 8 years, most of the people that we put in jobs were probably in the greater New Haven area. Mm-hmm. And when we look more recently, probably about 70% are in that greater New Haven area, and the rest are distributed all throughout the state. So mm-hmm. people are really having to go farther to find jobs and to find good jobs, and transportation is a significant barrier. I mean that's unfortunately sometimes changes where we have to place somebody just because they don't have the means to get to where the jobs are.
Mm-hmm. And so how much of a push do you make for this argument? Like is that always you always have to lead with that?
It is in the we've looked at a number of transportation options. It's interesting. We did a study with the Council of Governments and the NAACP a few years ago, mm-hmm. and some of that included surveys. The NAACP did a lot of surveys, and the interesting thing was that the unemployment rate between people who had access to a car or transportation was 10%. And the unemployment rate for those who did not was 35%.
Whoa!
Yeah, I mean it's off the charts.
How can anybody ignore those numbers?
Right. So we try in grants that we do always to include money mm-hmm. for transportation to help people, and so we try to provide some assistance with transportation for the first month or so, or when people are working until they can either get a couple of paychecks under their belt, make some mm-hmm. other type of ride sharing arrangements, those kinds of things. Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal. If the governor is listening, and the new governor elect. We have to talk about this.
Well, we met. I mean, it's interesting. The governor-elect came down to the program in the East, and myself and my chairwoman and my counterpart and his chairman and Courtney all met with Lamont, and he was very interested. He actually had found when he was going around the state campaigning, people said you should look at that program. You should look at that program. So. I think he's very excited about it, and hopefully will be supportive as he takes office.
I mean, he's a business owner, and depends on a workforce to, right. to ensure his success in his business, right?
Yeah, and this program I should have mentioned earlier. Excuse me, sorry. Mm-hmm. Is demand driven in the sense that they went to the manufacturers and said, "What is it you want us to test for? How do you want us to assess people?" And what are the training elements that you need that have applicability to the broad range of manufacturers? Because people make all different kinds of things, obviously. So they came up with this curriculum that said if people have these basics, which include shop math and safety and blueprint reading and different types of familiarity with equipment, that will work. If I get that person, some of the employers have said to us, the graduates that come out of this short-term program are equivalent to somebody who's already been in my shop for 6 to 12 months. I mean, they're coming in with that kind of thing. So it's, if you talk about a business person, Lamont being a business person, this program was designed by business for business, and its success proves that it was a good design.
So Bill, do you talk to boards of education about maybe thinking about how education is handled that makes it much more attractive for kids coming out of high school to sort of get jobs?
I have two answers for you. I mean, the first answer is convincing not only students, but their parents mostly, and school guidance counselors that manufacturing is a good option. If and you've been in education, so you know this. So if you look at your graduating class, high school graduating class, there's probably 25% of the students, 20 to 25% of the students that are not going to go to college, and another 25% or so are not going to are going to drop out after the first semester or the first year. So you've got roughly half your graduating class that needs another option, right? So
and not just be the military.
Yeah. I mean, the military for some is a good option.
It's a good option, but
right.
You still need another option.
Right. So, people, and everybody wants their kid to go to college, but
and I understand that.
Right.
Like we all understand that.
Yeah, but it's not always the best option, for your child, and giving them somebody where they can make a good living, and as you were saying earlier, right, they can own a home and have a car and go on vacation.
Yeah, and go back to school if they so desire.
Right.
So
that's the first thing is trying to convince people that manufacturing careers are a good option for your child. And the other issue is, I think that this program that this bond bill that I passed has in it a component for young people. So they say, we want you to work with students in class and kids who are out of school, young, 18 to 24, maybe year old adult. And there are already some school districts in the area. Wallingford school system and their superintendent are doing dramatic things trying to prepare people for these. So that's one of the things. As this bond money becomes available, we're already working with about 6 school districts in order to, as kids are seniors, to begin to prepare them for this. So certainly prepare them for the academics to be able to pass the test, but also begin to introduce some of the basic elements of manufacturing, so that kids can make a good choice if they want to.
So, okay, that's the educational piece. What about the reentry piece? Is there a component for that, or do you is there room for that conversation?
Yeah, I think so. We've been we started a program 15 years ago for ex-offenders. Actually before it's kind of popular to talk about reentry, and so we've got some programs specifically designed for ex-offenders. And I think what we've been finding over the years is that more and more employers are willing to give somebody who's had some involvement with the criminal justice system, a chance. And I think also, as we were talking earlier, the fact that the economy is what it is, and more employers are willing to say, if I'm going to get somebody who's working, I need to look for people maybe that I wouldn't have tried before. So there's not a specific design for them, but we will. There's no prohibition. There's no limitation. There are a few, like somebody with a criminal background probably can't get the security clearance to work in an electric boat, or maybe certain people where they have to have government clearance. But for the most part, it's not an issue, and somebody that has had a criminal background can certainly be a part of this initiative.
So how innovative do you get to be over there at Workforce Alliance? Like, how innovative do you look around the country and say, I like what they're doing over there in South Dakota?
Yeah. I mean, I'm on a couple of national boards, so I get the benefit of getting a little bit more, a little bit more information of what's going on around the country. So over the years there have been different either training approaches. I give you one example is what they call a contextual learning model, where a lot of adults don't like school or don't want to go back to school, or it's been a while since they've been in school. So the academics, the math, and some of the things taught individually don't seem to work very well. But when you teach it contextually, when you teach it in concert, so that if you're learning some math and then it has exact applicability to the measurements or the things you need to do in the machine shop or in your medical career or whatever, it has much greater relevance and is a better way to train adults. We've done things like that. We've taken examples of other types of training programs and replicated them. And this one is we're not modifying at all. We're taking the curriculum, the design, the assessment of this manufacturing training program that has had such success, and we're going to put it in. I'm not above stealing and and borrowing.
So what are your thoughts, Bill, on how we are faring against other countries in terms of how we develop Workforce Alliance, and how we train people and where people work in this country.
Well, I think, one thing I would say compared to other countries is that our apprenticeship program can be better. When you look at, Germany and Austria and places like that, their apprenticeship programs, the tracks that students take much earlier, the involvement of businesses in the process and the support of businesses is better. I think we're improving in this country. Our apprentice program is beginning to broaden, and people are beginning to look at apprenticeships beyond just the trades, right? So like if you're an electrician or a carpenter or whatever, those are the traditional apprenticeships. But people are looking at careers in healthcare and IT and places like that, and seeing, can we develop apprenticeships there as well? Mm-hmm. So I think we have a ways to go, but we're getting better there.
Okay.
As a country.
So who in the world is doing it right?
Who in the world is doing it right?
Yeah. Like, who in the world is like, you know what, I really, really like that over there?
It's a tough question, but I would say a lot of people usually point to Germany, mm-hmm. that their system of preparing their future workforce is probably, certainly leading in the world. Whether they're the best, I'm not sure.
Okay. That's interesting. So you've stolen some ideas from them?
We don't do a lot of work with apprenticeships. The State Department of Labor has been managing that, mm-hmm. And they're doing it, and have some funding to do it. And again, I think that it's taking them longer to kind of to introduce what they want to do, and I'm not sure that we've really developed the apprenticeships in the other occupational areas that mm-hmm. we need to yet. Again, as I said earlier, we're getting there, but it's slower than probably it could be. So
talk to me about women in the workforce. What is that looking like these days? Are you hoping that women will get into this skill up for manufacturing? So
yeah, we're really trying to interest more women in this. It's been traditionally a male dominated mm-hmm. Field. We have instituted some workshops where we're trying to expose people to this and to give them options. Some of the in-school programming we're doing, we're trying to get younger people to look at this. So as we roll this out, I think we'll get better at that. But more and more women are, at least we've seen over the years, not dramatically, but are beginning to enter non-traditional careers, mm-hmm. and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think so. Now that they're starting to open up for women,
and
right?
There's a lot more discussion at the national level about STEM programs and things like that, and the schools are beginning to to broaden, so somebody doesn't go to shop and somebody doesn't go to home ec and those kind of. I'm probably really dating myself here with that stuff, right?
Well, there's a movement underfoot to bring back home economics.
Is it?
Because they're noticing they're turning out young people who don't know how to do anything. They don't know how to basic things.
Yeah.
And parents are hovering and doing everything for them that young people don't know how to.
I should go back and learn how to cook.
It's not too late. And men that cook are a lot more attractive than not, right? So
yeah, my son is a pretty good cook, but I can't.
Come on, you can boil some water.
I can boil some water, make some pasta.
Look, if you have a signature dish, you're more than halfway there. So, what do you think the future is for workforce development these days? What do you think the future looks like?
Well, I think that people are beginning to pay more attention. I give you an example. Electric boat was a big hirer of the. I mean, if that's a word, but hired many of the graduates. Like 700 of the graduates out of those 1,000 were electric boat. And I have a quote here from the president of Electric Boat, a guy named Jeffrey Geiger, and he said, "The thousands of jobs that go unfilled in manufacturing in the state today because of the lack of the ability to get qualified human resources is a terrible shame. We've hired nearly 700 people in 2 years, so this is going great guns. It's working well. I'm convinced that this program could be an important ingredient to get those jobs filled. It needs to be expanded." So I think for a long time, a lot of manufacturers know that businesses waited for the government to do something, mm-hmm. to train them, to provide it. And I think they're becoming more involved in the design and support of these programs. Electric Boat is trying to get the Defense Department to support some of this training. Defense Department initially said, well, that's labor's job, you know, and so I think employers are becoming advocates to a greater degree for this system and becoming involved in it. New Haven Manufacturers Association is a partner of ours. You know, we have a lot of people at the table helping us design this. It's community colleges, it's both tech schools, it's chambers, it's economic development corporations. All people now are beginning to see that in order to ensure Connecticut's competitive future, we have to do things like this, and they have to be involved. So I think very optimistic about where we're going.
Okay, because do we want to see corporations start their own training programs? You know, to do their own recruiting and.
They do to some degree. I mean, you know, the entry level is where they struggle with, right? Because it's a very expensive process. It's a very time-consuming process. So our ability to help them with that is really what makes a difference. Companies do a lot of training, you know, obviously to keep pace in this world with the changing technology and equipment, AI, and all that stuff. You have to continue to train people and be there.
Wow. So Amazon can say, you know what, we want you to get them ready, job ready. And then when we get them in, we will.
Yeah, I mean, and even in this manufacturing program, like I say, people learn the basics. You know, they come in off the street much better prepared than anybody could be. And the company will then train them to their either specific process or products, you know, and bring them along. And I think people always need to do training on their own, you know, lifelong learning, all the stuff, you know, that education is, you need to keep pace with changing technology if you're gonna advance it.
So this program, the Skill Up for Manufacturing program, it's a 5-week commitment, 6 hours a day for 5 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And so, do they get stipend, or they have to? They're gonna have to tough it out.
We're trying to build in a small stipend, because you know a lot of people say you know I'm working my 25 hours a week. I really can't afford to do that. But if we can offset that with a small stipend during training, which is what we're trying to build into this, I think it'll go a long way to help people be able to get through this training and get a job, and if you know and not be able to and to leave their regular job for those 5 weeks.
And so will the offering of the classes or the training be flexible? Like, will you have some nighttime activity? Will you have some weekend activity?
As I said, you know, in order to really ramp this up, our longer term goal is to be able to have like two shifts. You know, maybe a 7 to 3 shift and a 3 to 9. You know, so that we can increase it, and that might help people who have a job, you know, on those off hours, do that.
Because that would make sense, you know, to capture a lot more people. Because I'm sure there'll be people like, man, I wish I could do it, but you know, I have to work this job and I don't get off till 2, or you know, and I can't take this time off and that kind of thing.
I mean, you know, to answer your question earlier, I mean, you know, what they found in the programs already is that, you know, the traditional programs that are run by the community colleges and the voc tech schools are like 8 months, 9-month long programs. And, you know, and people say, you know, I can't give you that. I can give you 5 weeks. I can give you 6 weeks, you know, but so that's a greater appeal to this program, is that you can at this accelerated pace get to a place in a much shorter period of time.
And so what do you like best about this program? Like what was attractive to you to say, you know what, I think we could do this?
Well, there were a number of things, you know, certainly the outcomes, you know, the fact that the number of people that were placed and the number of employers that hired people made it very appealing. But the one thing, which is what I mentioned earlier, the fact that almost 80% of the people went through that had no manufacturing experience whatsoever, but were able to get the training and get these good jobs. That was probably the greatest appeal. I mean, we can get a really broad, you know, base of individuals, you know, that go into this program, diverse backgrounds, and get good jobs for them.
Okay, so I'm looking forward to hearing more about this after you graduated a few classes. So it starts December 7th. People should contact Workforce Alliance.
Yeah, you know, the American Job Centers. There's one in New Haven. There's one in Hamden, one in Meriden, and one in Middletown. So any one of those job centers, you can contact it. You know, we'll get them in. We'll get them tested, and hopefully get them started in a training program in February.
That sounds good. All right, so let me shift gears a little bit. Talk to me about Workforce Today, your podcast.
Oh, interesting. I started asked if I was interested in doing this, and I started a few years ago, 2 years ago actually, hoping to get 500 downloads in a year. And I do them on kind of economic topics generally, you know,
all the sexy stuff.
Always working in workforce though, right? And I've done about 15 of them so far, and it's amazing. You know, internet is just an amazing thing.
Oh, it is.
67,000 downloads in like 30 countries.
And so
1,200 in Japan. How does that even happen?
So who do you think is listening to you? Other economic people?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, I've done podcasts with politicians. I've done it with somebody from Microsoft, a hedge fund billionaire that started this organization called Working Nation, economists. So I think maybe the diverse group of people, you know, I'm thinking that all those downloads in Japan was for the Microsoft podcast. You know, I'm not really sure, but it's been a lot of fun. I keep them short, you know, 25 minutes or so. You know, ask 8 or 10 questions. I've done a couple with the Retail Federation. There's a lot of I think misconceptions about the retail apocalypse. You know, I've done a lot. Really interested in the whole robotics and automation and AI, you know, how that's going to change the workforce, how that's going to change jobs. And, you know, there's been I've had a couple of economists that have a totally opposite opinion. So I think that people, you know, are willing to listen to something short and you know, on topic. But it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it. Podcast is the new frontier, I think.
Yeah.
You know, and because you know what, it allows people to sort of listen at their leisure.
Yeah.
And you know, and they can have it.
Right.
Have it so.
Keep them short and sweet and don't bore them.
Yes.
Yeah.
You said something to me. You said something a few minutes ago about the retail.
Yeah.
And what people imagine is happening and what really is happening.
Well, you know, so there's this, because you see stores like Sears and Toys R Us and things like that, you know, so everybody's saying, you know, retail is over, you know, and it's all online stuff. The interesting thing is that while some of that is true, retail is really more changing than it is necessarily dissolving. You know, for example, 75% of the biggest online stores are retail box stores. You know, it's Macy's, it's I'm drawing a blank on all these, but, you know, it's Target, it's all those kind of people are trying, you know, Walmart trying to, you know, to compete online, you know, trying to become more Amazon-like. It was interesting. I read in Tom Friedman's book that Walmart bought a company, and I don't remember the name of the company, to the sole purpose was to increase the amount of time that you do something that when you order online, because apparently for every 2 seconds longer it takes, they lose X percent of business. You know what I mean?
Really?
Which, when you multiply that times the number of online purchases, is billions. You know, apparently we don't have patience. You know? We have to wait 2 seconds. So we click and we go somewhere else. So like I say, three quarters of the biggest online are already the box stores. And
that's that's interesting to know, because I don't think people think that or know that anyway.
Right. So listen, I did two separate podcasts with a woman named Ellen Davis from the National Retail Federation, and we talk a lot about this. But you know, and we also talked about how stores are kind of reinventing themselves. You know, they're stores that are changing their look, that are including little coffee bars, or things like, trying to change the retail experience when you go shopping. So, and
the Jordan's furniture store is a good example of,
and you know what,
a different concept.
When I did the podcast, I talked with Ellen about 3 different stores that, that were and the things that they were doing, and I wanted to go to Jordan's. I wanted to say, okay, here's a furniture store with a pizza place, an ice cream place, and zip lines.
Yes.
Right. And they declined. I have to say, almost everybody I've ever asked to do a podcast hasn't, and they were the only ones that didn't want me to come in there. And all I really wanted to do was talk to a manager and say, talk about, like 5 questions about what was going on there. So,
well, everybody's so leery of being gotcha'd.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but I mean, I couldn't really see the downside here. But anyway, so actually, I ended up going to a restaurant in Milford that used to be a hardware store. So they changed it. They kept some of the ambiance of the hardware store, and people brought in pictures of family members that had been in the military or first responders or things like that. So it kind of had this little homey feel. So you could come in and and here's Uncle Harry on the wall, kind of thing. So it's it wasn't the best example, but it's what I.
Well, I mean, I think you're absolutely right that stores are reinventing themselves. I mean, I think with how when you walk into the Apple store,
oh yeah,
and it's all sleek and there's no cash registers.
Yeah,
it's a little creepy, but that's because I'm bridging the gap between that one generation and the next, and so it's a little weird.
They've got their little tablet and they swipe the card and everything is done.
But then who has the store now where if you have the thing on your phone, you don't even have to. You can just pick it up and walk out the store,
right?
And as you're walking out, it charges your.
Well, what Amazon is doing. So basically, what you do is you go and you swipe with your phone, right? The little icon or whatever it is, and there's no cashier. You pick it up and go out. The next phase of this, what they're going to do is you can take your phone and you just swipe it over the thing that you want, and you leave, and it gets delivered to you.
Yeah.
So.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. There were a couple of examples. There's stores that decide when they go into an area to have a design that's more consistent with the architecture and the culture there, so that rather than having a cookie cutter Starbucks store, they have something that's more personal. They talked. I gave an example of a store in Brooklyn that they said sells urban wear. So it's like hoodies and kids clothes. And they have a little skateboard bowl in the middle of it, so that's attracting people. And the paint is all chippy and stuff like that. So other companies that just change the look, change the color, change their silverware, change their dishware. It's just things that they do to tweak it to make you want to go to that store.
Well, it's working though, right?
It is.
It does work. People like a clean, attractive place,
right. And retail is up. I mean, retail is up, and the online, the statistics they said the online purchases are about 10% of retail. Now the fallacy,
really,
the fallacy of that though is it includes all retail, so it includes Starbucks and your local hardware store and things like that. What they don't have is, what's the percentage of the big box? What is that? I could never get that kind of percentage.
So Bill, what do you think of the mall concept? Are malls dying? Are malls changing? Or what?
I mean. They clearly are. I mean, a lot of malls, have health clubs and things like that, end up to try to fill the gap. And I had a conversation with the previous mayor of West Haven, Ed O'Brien.
Yes, because they've got that project.
We're building the Havens over there.
Is it coming still?
Yeah, it still is. As far as, I keep asking because it's slower than I thought it would be.
That looked like some good housing stock that they are about to raise.
Yeah, So I think a lot of the trouble, part of the delay was. There were some people that were fighting the eminent domain where they were taking over things. But I said to Ed, I said, with certain malls closing and that as a kind of a retail hub, and why are you building this? And what he said to me was that it's different for a little bit higher end mall. And this was he wasn't reelected, so he's been out of office for a while. And he said that at the time, we're already 60% occupied. So the malls that maybe have some higher end stores or some different specialty stores seem to be doing better. But
it's West Haven. So do people think West Haven as a high end mall destination?
The majority of people still stop and shop in a store.
I'm not trying to hate on West Haven. No. I'm just it's not Westport.
Yeah, right. But they felt that having something that maybe is a little bit higher end in this region was going to work. I mean, a majority of people still shop in a store. They want to go in, they want to touch the thing, they want to see it, they want to try it, and they want it immediately, right? I mean, because sometimes 2-day delivery on Amazon isn't quick enough, right? So they want it immediately. But when you want convenience, right? your last minute Christmas shopping or something. I just ordered something on Amazon, and and I can't believe it was a book, and the day after, the day it's there.
Yeah.
So I guess it saved me from going to the to the bookstore or to whatever. But so again, so it's just not as dire, I guess, as people are kind of painting. Some people paint it.
Yeah. Because that's what I've heard that. Like I've heard that. Oh, retail is dying and da 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 da. You know,
it's changing.
It's changing.
But I guess from from a Macy's perspective, if 30% now is going to be online and 70% in store, that works for them. Now it'll mean some stores closing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Macy's is going under. You know what I mean?
Oh no, I can't imagine that. I mean, but I've seen stranger things, so I can't. I can't sort of say it. Well, I think I feel a little good about that information you just gave me. I get to frame that retail story a little differently now.
Yeah.
I don't have to think, oh my God,
Listen to the podcast, Ellen Davis.
I am going to listen to the podcast. The podcast. Where can people find it?
Workforce Today, and any
like iTunes and SoundCloud.
All that stuff. It's
okay.
there.
Oh, good. I'm gonna go listen because I'm really fascinated by this whole thing. And I appreciate you coming in, Mr. Villano.
Listen, I'm glad you have us. I'm hoping we can get the word out, get to more people, and start people on a good career path.
Well, I hope you can come back because I'd like to hear, a little ways in, how it goes.
Maybe 5 or 6 months down the road, we can tell you how we're doing.
Yeah, that'd be good to know.
All right.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Happy holidays.
You too. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.